Welcome to Klassy Korea, where we break down the most talked about topics in Korea right now. When most people around the world hear the name Park Jin-young or JY Park or JYP, they think of K-pop hits, flashy performances, and some of the industry's most famous idols. As a founder of JYP Entertainment, he has spent the last 3 decades producing groups like Wonder Girls, Twice, ITZY, NMIXX, and Stray Kids, some of the most popular groups in K-pop. But this week, JYP stepped into an entirely new role, not as a music producer, but as a government appointee. President Lee Jae-myung announced that JYP has been named co-chair of the newly established Presidential Committee on Cultural Exchange. Alongside the Minister of Culture, Sports, and Tourism, Park Jin-young will help design strategies for promoting Korean culture abroad and strengthening cultural ties with other countries. The timing of this appointment could not be more symbolic because recently, JYP has spoken at the APAC high-level dialogue on cultural industry in Gyeongju, where he declared K-pop is no longer just a music genre. It has become the greatest cultural driving force that ignites hearts across the globe. And his words echoed a larger vision. That is, Korean pop music can evolve beyond entertainment into a platform for international understanding and cooperation. Now, to understand why JYP's new position is significant, it helps to look back at his unusual career path. So, Park Jin-young first made his debut in the 1990s as a solo singer, known for catchy songs like Don't Leave Me and Honey. And his performances, often featuring bold choreography and unconventional outfits, immediately set him apart in Korea's music scene. But Park Jin-young was never content to be just a singer. In 1996, he founded JYP Entertainment, which would become one of Korea's big three music agencies. At the time, there was no hype, no big hit. And over the years, he produced or trained some of the country's most influential acts like G.O.D., Rain, B, Wonder Girls, 2PM, Miss A, Twice, and more recently, Stray Kids and ITZY and NMIXX. And through these groups, Park Jin-young built a reputation not only as a hitmaker, but also as someone with a vision for how K-pop could expand beyond Korea. And his obsession with the global market was evident early. In 2003, he traveled to the United States with nothing more than promotional CDs to hand out to record labels. And a few years later, he took a daring step, that is, moving the Wonder Girls, who were then one of Korea's hottest groups, to the US to start from scratch. And they toured as an opening act for artists like Jonas Brothers, and even managed to place their single, Nobody, on the Billboard Hot 100 in 2009, which was the first Korean act ever to achieve this milestone. Now, although the Wonder Girls' US run was pretty short-lived. It was a sad story if you look deeper. But Park Jin-young's persistence laid the groundwork for what would come later. A decade on, groups under JYP like Stray Kids and Twice would achieve exactly what he had dreamed of. Topping the Billboard charts, selling out stadiums around the world, in North America especially, and solidifying K-pop as a global cultural force. And seen in this light, his appointment to a government-level cultural committee is not as surprising as it might first appear, because Park Jin-young has spent 2 decades testing the limits of how far K-pop could go. And now the Korean government is asking him to channel that experience into national policy. Now, when the appointment was announced, JYP admitted that he wrestled with the decision. For someone who has spent time, his life, in the entertainment industry, stepping into government service was not an easy choice. So on his social media account, on Instagram specifically, he explained, taking on the work of the Committee on Cultural Exchange. Hello, this is Park Jin-young. As you may have seen in the news, I've been appointed to serve on a presidential body called the Committee on Cultural Exchange. Taking on a government role feels daunting and worrisome for someone in the entertainment industry, so I gave it much thought. But K-pop has reached a truly unique opportunity, and I felt strongly that we must seize it. That is why I made this decision. When I first went to the US in 2003 with nothing but promotional materials to hand out to record companies, when the world Wonder Girls became the first Korean act to enter the Billboard Hot 100 in 2009, and even now, my dream has always been the same, for K-pop to be loved worldwide. From working in the field, I've often thought that institutional support was needed in certain areas. I will do my best to organize those areas clearly so that meaningful support can reach where it is needed, and to help younger artists gain more opportunities. And I will work to ensure that K-pop makes another leap forward, beyond just promoting our culture, to become a platform where people around the world can understand and connect with one another. Since I am beginning this role after much reflection, I ask for your advice and encouragement. I also want to sincerely thank Minister Jin-young of the Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism, who agreed to take on this work with me. Thanks to him, I was able to gather the courage to begin. So that was a full text that he shared on his Instagram. Now, for JYP, the idea of globalization has never been, a passing ambition, it seems. It has been the driving force of his career. And as you have just read, he recalled milestones that shaped his journey. Flying to the US in 2003 with little more than promotional CDs, watching Wonder Girls become the first Korean act to enter the Billboard Hot 100 in 2009, and seeing today's K-pop groups dominate international charts. And through it all, he said his dream has remained the same. That is, for K-pop to be loved worldwide. And what makes his new government role, or what makes his new role different, is that it gives him the chance to influence not just artists under his own label, but the entire industry. And he emphasized that one of his priorities will be creating institutional support, systems and policies that can make a lasting difference. He said something like, from working in the field, I've often thought that institutional support was needed in certain areas. I will do my best to organize those areas clearly so that meaningful support can reach where it is needed, and to help younger artists gain more opportunities. But JYP's vision goes further than boosting the careers of young artists, right? Because he sees K-pop as a cultural bridge. That's why he said, I want K-pop to take another leap forward, beyond just promoting our culture, to become a platform where people around the world can understand and connect with one another. So in other words, he hopes that music can become a tool, not just for entertainment, but for diplomacy and international cooperation. And I guess this outlook resonates with what he said at the recent APAC Cultural Industry Dialogue, where he described K-pop as the greatest cultural force that ignites hearts across the globe. And if the Presidential Committee on Cultural Exchange is about strengthening Korea's cultural ties, I guess Park Jin-young seems determined to use his lifetime of experience to ensure that K-pop is at the center of that effort. Now, the announcement of Park Jin-young's appointment wasn't just a talking point in the cultural world. It had an immediate impact on the market, because JYP Entertainment stock price, which had closed slightly lower during regular trading on September 9th, spiked in after-hours trading once the news broke. Its shares jumped more than 7% to surpass 80,000 Korean won, which was their highest level in weeks. And by the next morning, the stock was still trading strong, briefly crossing the 80,000 Korean won mark again during intraday sessions. But I guess what's going on right now at the current moment is sell the news. It spiked in the very beginning, like 7%, 8%, but then it's getting lower. So typical sell the news behavior. I wonder what's the price right now, JYP stock. Yeah, typical behavior. Anyways, but I guess in the beginning, or still, the investors consider this as a positive news. And because this surge is more than symbolic, it suggested that the market sees Park Jin-young's new government role as potentially elevating not only his personal influence, but also JYP Entertainment's standing as a cultural powerhouse. And in an industry where perception and prestige are closely tied to global reach, having the company's founder positioned at the heart of Korea's cultural diplomacy could translate into real business opportunities, potentially, or perhaps. But the impact potentially go beyond JYP, because for years, South Korea has treated K-pop as both an economic driver and a tool of soft power. So the creation of a presidential committee on cultural exchange formalizes that outlook, signaling that cultural industries will play an even more strategic role in Korea's international policy, or they hope. So by choosing Park Jin-young, who's a figure who straddles both the creative and business sides of the industry. The Korean government, seems to be acknowledging that cultural diplomacy is not just about, state-led initiative, but about leveraging the experience of people who have actually built global success from the ground up. And this raises interesting questions for the rest of the industry. Like, will other major players like HYBE, SM, or YG push for closer cooperation with the government in shaping cultural policy, or maybe they won't? And how will Park Jin-young balance his identity as both an entertainment executive and a government committee co-chair? That will be an interesting task for him. And perhaps most importantly, will institutional support really be able to create more opportunities for the next generation of artists as he envisions? Or maybe it will, cause effects that he is not expecting. So we'll have to see. But Park Jin-young's appointment, I think it marks an unusual moment in the intersection of, pop culture and government. Because few countries, at least, those I'm aware of, a few countries would place a record producer at the head of a state-backed cultural exchange body. Let me know if your own countries do that, or if you know other examples. But I guess in South Korea, where K-pop is both a global industry and a symbol of national pride, the move feels almost inevitable. And JYP brings something few policymakers can, lived experience of taking Korean culture abroad long before it was mainstream. Like from handing out CDs in the US to watching Stray Kids, they're the most popular on their JYP labels, right? So watching Stray Kids top the Billboard charts, he has seen firsthand what it takes to succeed and also to stumble on the international stage. So now, with the seat at the policy-making table, he has the chance to shape how Korea supports its artists and engages with global audiences and uses culture as a bridge between nations. And at the same time, the appointment opens new debates. How much influence should the entertainment industry have in shaping cultural policy? And will this new committee be able to move beyond symbolism and create, actual and meaningful frameworks that help artists and industries thrive? And perhaps most importantly, can K-pop truly evolve into more than music, becoming the kind of cultural force that Park Jin-young envisions, one that fosters mutual understanding across borders? So as K-pop continues its global ascent, global rise, Park Jin-young's new role could perhaps, potentially, prove to be either a turning point or simply another headline in his ongoing story. What is certain, though, is that the world will be watching, and I'll be watching, not just to see how Korea manages its cultural diplomacy, but to see whether the man who, helped start the K-pop wave can now guide it to its next horizon. So here's a question for you. Do you think having a K-pop producer at the heart of government cultural policy will accelerate Korea's cultural influence, or could it blur the line between business and public service? And beyond that, what do you think K-pop's role should be in global cultural exchange over the next decade? Especially, given the context that K-pop Demon Hunters became one of the most popular films ever, especially in the era of Netflix. So let me know your thoughts by writing comments, and let's keep things classy as always. Once again, this was Klassy Korea, where we break down the most talked about topics in Korea right now. See you in the next video. Peace and love. Bye-bye.